All right. So I have spent like the last 46 minutes talking to myself while developing. So we're going to start this over. Oh, whoops. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I already have Unity open here. Yeah, like I threw that together. Um, we're just going to go new 2020 2D project. Um, Rapid prototype 2 electric boogaloo. There we go. So I want to go over just sort of why I wanted to create this video while we wait for this to load. I recently saw like a ton of videos on YouTube that are like, I made a game in an hour. And like the video's 5 minutes long. And like I looked at a few of those, and yeah, those are games that you reasonably made in an hour. It's things like Flappy Bird, and like you can just move a cute like a square around, and you can collect items. So yeah, like I believe that those are made in an hour, but it's not quite the same as seeing like the full development of the prototype in the course of 1 hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together a 2D platformer prototype from scratch, from nothing. Because the other type of video that I've seen where it's like, I made a game in an hour, it's like, I made a real-time strategy game in an hour. And if you've ever tried to make a real-time strategy game, you know that you need a lot more power to build that. And you pop that video open, and it turns out that they went to the asset store and they bought a ton of assets, and like that's how they developed a game in 1 hour. It's just them shopping on the asset store. I'm gonna pull that over so we can see the chat over here. Um, so we got a scripts folder. I called it script because there we go. Um, I'm going to get started creating like a player asset that we can use. I'll create like some ground. And then what I really want to do is just bare bones prototype where it's a platformer. Player can move, they can jump. They have challenges that they have to overcome by moving and jumping. They can win the game and they can lose the game. That's it. That's the entire prototype. So I'm going to create a 2D object sprite square. I'm gonna rename it to player. I'm gonna change its color. I'm gonna go with red. I'm feeling Mario today. I'm gonna add some components onto this. So I'm gonna add a box collider 2D. I'm gonna add a rigid body 2D. I'm going to go into constraints and make sure that we don't rotate on the z-axis so we don't like bounce around and stuff like that. And we now have kind of a player. We need to be able to handle input. So I'm going to go C# script. I'm just going to call it player. Give that a moment. All right, so I'm going to just rip this out. I'm going to put some of that stuff back in, but out of habit, I usually rip that out. So I'm going to have a void awake. And I want to be able to get a reference to the rigid body 2D for movement stuff. So public rigid body 2D. Just going to go with this. It's going to give me green squiggly lines because that already exists, so I'm going to call it a public new. And now those squiggly lines go away. I'm going to use get component to assign it. Just to give you a heads up, if you're following along with my coding, I'm going to zoom in to make that a bit easier to read. If you're following along with this, it's not the best way to write code. I am going for what is quick and easy rather than what is like technically correct or the most efficient way of doing things. So I'm going to be making like all my variables public pretty much. Yeah, I know what you mean, Jordan. All right, so that gets a reference to that. I'm also going to want a void update and a void fixed update. So what I'm going to do here is in my update, I'm going to get my input and then I'm going to apply it in the fixed update. So I'm going to have a public float x move. I'm going to default that to 0. I'm also going to do a public float move speed, and I'm going to default that to 1. We're going to be changing that. We're going to experiment with some values. Glad you enjoy it, Jordan. All right, so to get the actual movement, I'm just going to say x move is equal to input get axis horizontal. So I'll get either the arrow keys or the WASD, or like if we hook up a controller, it'll also get like the joysticks. And that'll be a number between -1 and 1. And then for fixed update, what I really want to do is I just want to mess with the velocity of my rigid body. So it'll be rigid body dot velocity equals a new vector 2. And what we're going to do here is for the x, it's going to be our x movement multiplied by our movement speed multiplied by time dot fixed delta time. And then for the y, it'll just be the rigid body dot velocity dot y. So we're not going to make changes to the vertical velocity there. We also want to be able to jump. And so we can detect that with input dot get key down. I'm just going to use the spacebar for jumping. It'll be key code dot space. There's more that we want to do here though, so I'm going to drop in a public bool is grounded. I'm going to set that equal to true at the beginning of play. So our character will start falling, but it'll say that they're on the ground, because really we don't want to be able to spam the jump button and jump into infinity. We only want to be able to jump if the player is grounded. And if we can, we'll just do jump. I'm going to have to create this method, so I'm going to control period, generate method. And then up here, I'm going to add another float, so public float jump force is 1F. And then I'll just do rigid body dot add force. We'll add the jump force. Whoops, not jump. We want jump force. And then we want force mode 2D dot impulse for our jump. Oh, that needs to be a vector 2. So new vector 2 0, comma jump force. There we go. And just to clean up the formatting a bit, I'm going to go to Edit, Advanced, Format Documents. Going to put spaces in, make everything a bit more readable. And what we want to do here is when we jump, we also want to set is grounded equal to false. And then we want to set is grounded equal to true, but only when we're hitting the ground. So if we jump up and we hit blocks that are above us with the top of the player, we don't want grounded to be true. And so how we're going to do that is with void on collision enter 2D. We're going to take that, we're going to do an if collision dot, then in here we can get contact. And this will let us get the very first contact point. And what we're going to do here is we're going to check it as dot normal dot y and see if that is greater than 0. And what that means is that we have landed essentially on top of something. So we have hit something with the bottom of our with our collider, and we have landed on the top of another collider. So if that is the case, we want to set is grounded equal to true. And to test this all out, yeah, I think we're at a point where I can go in here. We've got our player. I'm going to drop the player script on it. While I'm at it, I'm going to right-click. I want a 2D object sprite square. And move this down a bit. Just sort of stretch that out. Make it a green color so it can represent our ground. I'll give it a rigid body 2D, but make it static collision instead of dynamic. Add a box collider 2D. Hit play. And I absolutely hate that blue in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and update the values on my player here for our movement speed. So if I recall correctly, 500 is a pretty good, yeah, that feels good. So how I found this value when I was prototyping earlier, like I started at 1 and then I made it 10, then I made it 100, then I made it 1,000, and 1,000 was just too fast. Cut it in half, 500 feels really good. So when you're prototyping, what I recommend doing is really big changes in numbers when you're tuning. So like don't go like 20, 25, 30, like multiply by 2 or multiply 10 or divide by 2 or divide by 10. And then when you go over the value that you wanted, then you can, sort of narrow it down to what feels right. So to give you an example with jumping, if I hit the jump button, like that is the saddest little jump in the world. If I make that a 10, ooh, that's a bit much. It's a bit floaty. If I make that like a 8, oh, maybe. Let's try 9. I think 9 feels like just perfect for this character. We're going to go with 9. All right, so 500 move speed, 9 jump force. There we go. I'm going to create a folder, prefabs. We're going to dump our player in here. We're going to dump our, I called it square. I'm going to rename it to ground. Dump the ground in here. And honestly, I'm going to make the main camera a child of the player. And I'm going to go ahead and on the player just apply all. So there's better ways of having a follow camera than just like making the camera a child of the player. This is the fast, easy way of doing it. And then I kind of want to have a bigger view space too. So I'm just gonna crank that up a bit. I want to get rid of this ugly blue. I hate the default blue background. I hate the default blue skybox. Anything that's default in Unity, try to get away from the defaults. I'm gonna make this more of like a sky blue. I think that looks a bit better. I'm curious. I haven't tried this particular component with a sprite. I've done it with like images and text and UI. I want to try something with the ground. Let's see if I can just add a drop. Yeah, it doesn't let me add a drop shadow. Oh, maybe I can. I can add a shadow. yeah, I can't really see that at all. So I'm guessing that it just doesn't work with this particular asset. There we go. All right, so we've got a ground. We can go ahead and start adding in a bit of challenge. So I'll put ground tile there. Let's see if we can make that jump. Use that as sort of a guide for, okay, yeah, we can totally make that big of a jump. So I'll drag another one in here, one here, and one there. So let's see if we can just make it all the way to the end. Oh, can't make that jump. That's too high. I'm going to select all of those and just, oops, not want to have them have the exact same Y. Let's move them all down and a bit to the left. That jump's good. That jump's good. All right. Yeah, we can make it all the way to the end of our scene. Okay, so we've got challenges in for the player to do. The player can move and they can jump. And the player can no longer jump infinitely. So we've got 2 of the requirements in. Next, I want the player to be able to lose and the player to be able to win. So for making it that the player can lose, this is going to be super easy. I'm going to create a empty game object and I'm going to call it the kill box. I'm going to add onto it a box collider 2D. This box collider 2D is just going to be really big on the X, so let's do 1,000. And then I'm just going to move it below all of the platforms. And on it, I'm going to create the script. So kill box. Make sure to actually drop my script on there. I'm going to drop the box into the prefabs folder. In case we wanted to make multiple levels, we can reuse the same asset now. And then on the kill box, what I'm going to do, I'm going to rip out all of that, and we're going to check for void on trigger enter 2D. And what we want to do is we want to check the tag on the thing that entered this box, and if it's the player, you know, I'm going to be really lazy here, and I'm just going to restart the level. So I'm going to, yeah, it's still named sample scene, so I'm going to call it just level. There are better ways of handling it than the way I'm about to, that make it easier to have like multiple levels in your game. So I'm just going to do it the fast, easy, lazy way. And so I need to use scene management up here. So using Unity engine.scene management. And to kill the player, like I'm not going to destroy the player prefab. I'm not going to like reset things in level. I'm just going to reload the level. So scene manager.load scene level. And right now we're not actually checking to see if it's the player, so if anything collides with it, we would do that. So what we really want to do is we want to check if collision dot game object dot compare tag player, and then we still need to make sure that it has a player tag on it. So if I go to my player prefab, it's currently untagged. I'll make it tag with player, apply all. Drop my kill box in here and jump to my death. something has gone wrong. So let's take a look at our kill box. Got a box collider 2D. It's not set to is trigger, so what happened was we landed on the kill box and we just sort of sat there. So now we should die. There we go. So the level resets when we miss a platform and we fall to our death. Right, so now we have a way for the player to die. Now let's set up a way for the player to win. I'm going to go 2D object, sprites, circle, call it the goal. I'm going to go ahead and make it a yellowish color. Just going to drop it like way over here. So the player has to get to this platform and they have to jump up to get it. Go to scripts. Just call this the goal script. Drop that on the goal. Go to the prefabs folder, drop the goal into here. So if we wanted to do multiple levels, now we could create a reusable goal that knows like how to load up like the next level. How I'm going to handle this is it's just going to load up a victory level. So like if we get to the end of this level, we win. So in scripts, go to goal. We're going to be using our scene manager again. So Unity engine dot scene management. Get rid of all of that. I'm going to do a void on trigger enter 2D. We're going to check to see if it's the player. So if collision dot game object dot compare tag player scene manager dot load scene. We'll call it the victory scene. So while I'm at it, I'll create a couple of scenes. There we go. Call it victory. I'll create another scene. I just call it title. I'm going to make sure to add them in build settings. So add open scene, make the title screen our first scene. Go to the victory scene. Add open scenes. All right, so first we'll start here. And I realize I think I left out a component on our goal. Yep. So we need a collider of some sort. I'm not going to put a box on a circle. I'm going to put a circle collider on the circle. And I'm going to set it to is trigger. There we go. I'm going to do our jumps. Make it all the way. No. No. Oh. This is a really hard jump. There we go. And I put it too high. So just for the sake of testing, I'm going to go into the player and I'm just going to give them a little more oomph in their jump. So we'll do 11. Boop. And we're on the victory scene. It has that ugly blue background for the skybox. So we're going to fix our victory scene and our title screen next. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to victory. I'm going to drop in a UI image. I'm going to zoom way out. There we go. Going to make sure to anchor and stretch this image, make it black, throw in some text. It says, "You win." Go ahead and center those. Best fit. Change the font color to something that's readable here. There we go. And then I'm also going to add in a button. So UI button. Just gonna throw it there. Call it restart, restart. Create a C# script for victory. And then what I'm going to do here, I'm going to need to use both Unity Engine dot scene management and UI, because we are going to hook up our button in code instead of manually. I'm going to have a public button restart button. What we'll do here is I'm going to be lazy. I'm just going to attach this to the button game object. Right, so I'm actually going to make this, instead of start, it's going to be awake. There we go. Right, so once we have assigned it, we're going to do restart button. Actually, I'm going to comment that out, and I'm going to create the method first. So we'll do public void restart game. Restart button dot onClick dot add listener. Not restart button, we want restart game. There we go. And what we'll do here is just scene manager dot load scene 0. So it'll just send us back to the title screen. And so now if I just drag this onto the button here, hit play, hit restart, now we're at the title screen. So now from the title screen, we're going to set up title, and we'll set up a couple of buttons so that the player can like start the game and they can quit the game. Right, so in scenes, we're going to hit the title. Yeah, go ahead and save. Going to do UI. And I don't want to do a black image this time. I think that's going to be kind of boring for our title screen. So I'll do a different color. I'll do this bright, painful purple to look at. So this will be our background. I'll do text. Go ahead and center this. Do a best fit. Change the color. Yeah. Ugh. You know what? Let's make it pure green. Right, so we have new text. We'll just call it 1 hour platformer. Make it a bit bigger. I'm going to add a component. So I'm going to add a little drop shadow to our text. So now you can actually see that. That's what that component does. It adds a little bit of drop shadow to it. While I'm at it, I'm going to create empty game object. I'll call it vertical box. I'm going to make my text a child of it. My vertical box will have a vertical layout group. We want it to be upper center. I'm going to go ahead and move that dead center. What this will do is any child game objects will be organized and laid out vertically. We can like specify padding and spacing in there. So what I can do here is UI button, call this the play button, UI button, call this the quit button, change the text on these to play and quit. I'm going to hook up the script here a bit differently because we have like these two different buttons. Let's take a look at the vertical box, maybe shrink it. Yeah, I think that's probably good. Maybe adjust the size of this box. There we go. All right, so create a title script. It'll have a public, I need to add the usings first, so using a Unity engine dot scene management and UI. So I'll have a button for the play button, button for the quit button, I'll do public void start game, and in that case we're just going to load the level. Yeah. Hey there. So I'll do scene manager dot load scene. My named level is just level. To quit the game, I'm going to do a public void quit game. And it's just going to call a method called application.quit, which quits the game. It won't actually quit it inside of the editor, though. And then I still need to hook up my buttons to my method. So what I'll do is play button dot onClick dot add listener start game and quit button dot onClick dot add listener quit game. So if I go ahead and minimize that, it's going to take a moment. I'm going to drop my title script onto the canvas here. And then I still need to hook up my button. So play button goes to play button, quit button goes to quit button. All right, so if I hit play, I can move and jump. Got challenges. Oh, that's a really hard jump to make. Whew. And I still need to move the goal down. Forgot to do that. But what I can do for now, if I select the player and I crank up their jump height temporarily to 12, you win. All right, so there is just one more thing I really want to do on the player, And then let's see, looking at the time, yeah, we got plenty of time. I'm gonna throw in some like really crappy AI enemies here. What I mean by crappy is they are artificially unintelligent. They just move and can kill the player. Right, so the first thing I want to do is in the player. That's going to be inside of our update. I want to be able to quit the game if I'm not on the title screen. So what I want to do here is just if input dot get key down key code dot escape. We'll do application dot quit. So if the player ever hits the escape key, instead of pausing the game, we'll just quit out. And then let's go ahead and create our fake little enemy. So I'll head back to the level scene. We'll get zoomed in here. Gonna go ahead, right click, 2D object, sprites. Let's just do another square, except these ones, I'll make them, no, I'll go with black for now. And they're going to have a lot of similar components to the player, actually. They are going to have a rigid body 2D. They're going to have a box collider 2D. And then we want them to move. So I'm just going to create a C# script. I'm going to call it bad AI. If we take a look at how we moved the player, it is, I believe it was a movement speed of actually 500. It says 1 here, but we changed it in the inspector to something like 500. I'm actually going to copy this from the player. We're going to head over to our bad AI. Now it's going to get really angry at me because there's a lot of stuff here missing. So I'm going to do a public rigid body 2D. I'm going to create that. Need to make sure that I actually hook it up. Oh, and it needs the word new up here. Doesn't like not having that. I'll do rigid body 2D equals get component rigid body 2D. So that's going to grab the component from the game object and hook it up. XMove is something that I did in the player. It just represents the direction of the joystick or the arrows. I'm just going to put that as -1. So the enemies will always move left. Move speed. Instead of -1, I'm just going to make this -500. So it's going to move at a constant speed to the left. And now, yeah, I think this should be enough. Let's go ahead and test this on our, I'm going to rename this to enemy. I'm going to make sure that we have a bad AI on our enemy. I'm going to hit play. Take a look at the scene view. And yeah! Oh, that's awesome. So I'm going to throw a few of these guys in here just for funsies. I go to prefabs, drop it in here. And now I'm just going to like drop some enemies into the sky, and they're going to come flying at me. Now you'll notice none of them actually killed me yet, and that's something that I still need to add in. So if I head back into the scripts, go onto my bad AI, go ahead and rip out the update, I'm not even using it. I'll say void on collision enter 2D. I want to check to see if the thing I ran into is a player. So if collision.gameObject.compareTag player, we're going to fake a game over just by reloading the level. So we'll do, I need to make sure I'm using the scene manager here. So using Unity engine.scene management. And we'll just call scene manager.load scene level. There we go. So now I'll go ahead and move one of these so I know that it'll be able to very easily hit the player. Yeah, so now if I ever get hit by one of those, it kills the player and we restart the game. Now, I'm definitely moving this one away from here. That was just for testing purposes. But yeah, like at this point, we have everything that I set out to do, and we have done it in under 1 hour. So if I were to check the time that we've been streaming, I would estimate that we've probably been going for about like 40, 45 minutes, but we now have what I would consider a full game prototype that we can mess around with, make changes to. There's lots of ways we can improve this. The way that I coded wasn't the best. I optimized for speed, not for efficiency. But we now have a game where the player can move and jump. There are challenges that they have to overcome by moving and jumping. The player can win the game and the player can lose the game. And also importantly, the player can, if they choose to quit the game, they can hit escape and they can quit the game. Right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed tonight's stream. This was a very fun exercise in seeing just how quickly I can put something together. If you really like this, I will go ahead and try out some other genres, maybe some other engines too. So I might do something in Unreal Engine 5. I might do stuff in RenPy or Adventure Game Studio. There's a lot of really fun engines to build games in out there. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream, and I hope that you all come back and check out my channel for more stuff like this in the future.